Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's Themeless Thursday and also Short Story Thursday because we found a lot of interesting stories that are only paragraph long, I guess. We will still discuss what's going on today, and let's go ahead and get into our headlines. Today on Before Coffee, Scottish police received thousands of reports after new hate crime law.
A Vietnamese billionaire is given a death sentence.
Voters in many countries skeptical of democracy. Polls shows.
And among news briefs today, Oklahoma judge orders Kansas City Chiefs Superfan to pay $10.8 million to bank teller.
In UK culture news, children are being used as a football. Hillary casts on her review of gender identity services.
Those stars and more, which is National Cheese Fondue Day, April 11th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
Okay, our first news story. Coming out of Scotland, we've been talking about this hate crime law, and now they're reporting that they're getting thousands of reports, but how many of them are actually applicable? This is from Japan Today, coming out of London. Scottish police said on Wednesday they had received more than 7,000 online reports of offences in the first week since the introduction of a new hate crime law that opponents say could curb free speech and waste police time. The law, brought by a devolved government controlled by the centre-left pro-independent Scottish National Party, bans stirring hatred based on age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, and transgender identity. Its critics have inclined Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling, a prominent campaigner for the view that biological sex cannot be changed, who, on the day that the law took effect, named a number of transgender women on social media and said they were men. Police have said she would not face any action over her comments. Police Scotland said 7,152 online hate reports, most of which were anonymous, were made in the first week of April, which is said was a substantial rise. During the week, police recorded 240 incidents as hate crimes and 30 as potential hate incidents that did not reach the criminal threshold. This significant demand continues to be managed within our contact centers and so far for the impact on frontline policing. Our ability to answer calls and respond to those who need our help in communities across Scotland has been minimal, a spokesperson said. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, whose Conservative Party opposes the law, has said people should not be criminalised for saying common sense things about biological sex. You know, it also used to be common sense for women to be quiet and not speak, and that they couldn't vote because they didn't own land. That used to be common sense. Who gives a shit about common sense? Meanwhile, the Scottish Police Federation, which represents all but high-ranking officers, had warned it was going to create a lot of extra work for its members. However, Scotland's Justice Secretary Angela Constance said the number of reports has fallen by 90% during the first week. The Hate Crime Act does not prevent people expressing controversial, challenging, or offensive views, nor does it seek to stifle criticism or rigorous debate in any way, while the right to freedom of expression is built into the Act, she said. It does help tackle the harm caused by hatred and prejudice. So you can say somebody's a man all you want, as long as you don't tell people to go beat them up in the street. That's the hate crime. That's the hate crime. Where you say, hey, go do a crime because you hate them. It's right there in the word and everything. But people just want to stir up any criticism against them as something bad, right? You're criticizing me for having an opinion. That's what you do. When you have an opinion, you criticize. It's not a personal attack. Well, it is a personal attack because you're dumb. Yeah, just whatever. Conservative Party doing Conservative Party things, not really surprised. Common sense. Common sense. What the hell is that? That's whoever's in power says is the status quo. And that's what common sense is. Either way, so far, so good. The law is doing what it's intended to do, which is not what everyone else is telling you it's supposed to be doing. And yeah, that's my short story.
Oh, really? Okay.
On the update on the Scottish hate crime law.
Okay, so for our story this morning, we're going to Al Jazeera.
Oh wait, we have to do
Vietnam
the thing, right?
What thing is that? Oh yeah, the golf clap, right on. Well, we can do the other sound. We can do the
Oh yeah. Oh darn.
for Truong Mai Lan. Truong Mai Lan. Court in Vietnam has sentenced a property tycoon to death over her role in a $12.5 billion financial fraud case, the country's largest on record.
Wow.
Truong Mai Lan, chair of the major developer Vin Tin Phat with a PH, was found guilty of embezzlement, bribery, and violations of banking rules at the end of the trial in Ho Chi Minh City on Thursday, according to the state media. Her lawyers now have 15 days to appeal the verdict. The 67-year-old illegally controlled the Saigon Joint Stock Commercial Bank between 2012 and 2022 to siphon the funds through thousands of ghost companies and by paying bribes to government officials. The value of her alleged asset appropriations was equivalent to about 3% of Vietnam's gross domestic product in 2022, and prosecutors say they seized more than 1,000 properties belonging to her. Lan had denied charges leveled against her, instead blaming subordinates. In her final remarks to the court last week, she said she had thoughts of suicide. In my desperation, I thought of this, she said, according to the state media. I'm so angry that I was stupid enough to get involved in this very fierce business environment, the banking sector, which I have little knowledge of. The court attributed its harsh sentence to the seriousness of the case, saying Lan was at the helm of the orchestrated and sophisticated criminal enterprise that had serious consequences with no possibility of money being recovered. Reported VN Express state media. Her actions not only violate the property management rights of individuals and organizations, but also push SCB into a state of special control, eroding people's trust in the leadership of the party and state. VN Express quoted the judgment as saying, Lan's arrest in October 22 was among the most high-profile in an ongoing anti-corruption drive that started in 2016 and has picked up since 2022. The so-called Blazing Furnace campaign has touched the highest echelons of Vietnamese politics, with 2 presidents and 2 prime ministers having resigned in recent years and hundreds of officials disciplined or jailed. Lan's husband, Hong Kong investor Eric Chu Nap Kee, was one of the 86 on trial after being accused of setting up a fake loan application to withdraw money from the Saigon Bank, in which she owned 90% of the stake. Lan's niece, Chong Hu Van, was the CEO of Van Thin Phat, was another top figure on trial. The Than Nien newspaper reported that 84 defendants in the case received sentences ranging from probation for 3 years to life imprisonment. Michael Tatarsky, host of Vietnam Weekly podcast based in Ho Chi Minh City, said Lan and her family have been highly obscene despite their vast wealth. Been highly obscure despite their vast wealth, with little information or pictures of them publicly available. Some of it's emerging now, but little is known about how she came to acquire this massive wealth. They are very secretive, despite being an incredibly powerful family, he told Al Jazeera. Petarsky said, this is one of the largest financial crimes in the world history, let alone Vietnam. This has meant that unprecedented details of corruption cases are being published and scrutinized by the state media. I think it declares some real desire to combat corruption here. There are probably some valid arguments that some of this has a political tinge to it. There's also clearly enormous amounts of corruption and fraud that does need to be cleaned up. All right, there's your story. Billionaires getting sentenced to death. We can never, ever see that happen in the United States unless something radically changes. I'm all for it. I'm all for people just being sentenced to death for just being billionaires.
Well, 2.4 billion in fraud is a lot of fraud.
Exactly.
I'm not sure what the history of fraud is and who has the highest numbers. I guess we should look that up.
We gotta pass a billionaire's tax. As you get $1 billion, you just can't have any more. That's it. That's your limit. What are you gonna do with that money? What do you need it for? Just money, you know? I'm just saying. You can own
I don't know.
wealth,
I don't
you
know.
can
I
own
don't know if
land,
I can
you
find
can
a
own
list of like
businesses.
how much fraud has ever been done, like the highest amount of fraud ever done. But
Probably
according to
Vladimir
this
Putin.
report, the EU has had 1.8 billion worth of fraud occur, but that's just from all sorts of people, not just one person, right?
1.8 billion fraud occurred. Come on, man. That sounds just sad.
I mean, but fraud can be as little as like, I'm going to sell you
Fraud's
something
in
on
the
eBay
trillions.
and then you never get it, but you paid shipping. So they get all the shipping money, for example.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Fraud's in the trillions, man. It's hard to calculate.
Also, like the most famous fraud in the US is, of course, wage fraud. People think theft or increasing the minimum wage or whatever, that's costing a lot. What's costing everyone a lot is working overtime and never getting paid for it. Or having to clock out right before you want to clock
theft,
out,
yep.
and then not getting paid that 30 minutes that you worked extra. There's so much wage fraud going on. It's the highest amount of stolen money in the US. I don't know about anywhere else, but in the US. That's where you're losing most of your money from.
I'm sure she did some of that too. Or
Yeah.
she was convicted of it. I don't know. I'm an innocent victim. All my underlings
Playing the women aren't smart angle. Good luck with that one.
Blame the people that work for you too.
Yeah.
Hey, this is all part of the game. You want to be a tycoon? You know, they just
You want to be
try
a capitalist
roll.
maniac? You gotta exploit some people. That's the rules.
Yeah, they're just trying to make shit roll downhill.
Well, I guess sad
Anyway,
horn
back.
for her again. Next time. She'll get them next time. Okay, our next story is also quite short but a little longer, and it is about a poll that has been done where voters in many countries are skeptical of democracy. I think what they're feeling is actually the pressures of end-stage capitalism, which does make democracy less reliable because, hey, you can just pay for votes. I'm a billionaire and I want you to be president, so I'm going to give you all the money. And since you have all the money, you'll be able to buy all that marketing, basically, to market yourself, and everyone will be like, I'm going to vote for that guy because he's everywhere. I see him everywhere. And we're all easy, you know? Our brains aren't that complicated, okay? You see somebody enough, you like them. For the most part. This is coming out of Reuters. 1 out of 3 voters queue to vote at a polling station in school during a general election, but those are most likely not to believe their vote matters. Voters in many countries are suffering a crisis of faith in their democracies and institution. A survey by a governance watchdog showed painting a bleak picture in a year in which more than half the world's population holds elections, with the United States, India, Britain, and the European Union going to the polls in 2024. The report published on Thursday, which is April 11th, by the International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA, offers a somber snapshot of the perceived health of many democracies. The result shows that the voters in 11 of the 19 countries surveyed, which include the US and India, fewer than half the people believe the most recent election was free and fair. Only voters in Denmark believe courts always or often provide access to justice, while in 8 of the 19 countries, more people had favorable views of a strong leader who doesn't have to bother with parliament or elections than had unfavorable views. Democracies must respond to the skepticism of their public, both by improving governance and by combating the growing culture of disinformation that has fostered false accusations against credible elections, International IDEA Secretary General Kevin Casas Zamora said in a statement. This year's presidential election in the United States is likely to see incumbent Democrat Joe Biden's face off against ex-President Donald Trump, falsely claimed widespread voter fraud when he lost the presidency in 2020. The survey showed that only 47% of respondents in the United States expressed faith that the country had credible electoral process. That's still almost half. That's terrible. And also, as we know with surveys and polls, who are they asking? We don't know. We don't see, I need to, I have to read the study and click the study and see what their actual scientific process was. So take all of this with a grain of salt. They could be asking your grandfather how he feels about it. And he doesn't even remember what he ate for breakfast, but this is how he feels about the democratic process. Election for Europe's Parliament, which takes place in June, could see big gains for far right and impact policy from support for Ukraine and its war against Russia's full-scale invasion to measures to address climate change. Wow, let me do that sentence again. The far right could impact policy from support for Ukraine in its war against Russia's full-scale invasion to measures to address climate change. In February, the parliament condemned what is called the Russians' attempt to undermine European democracy. A survey conducted between July 2023 and January 2024 polled about 1,500 people in each of the 19 countries, including Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Gambia, Iraq, Italy, Lebanon, Lithuania, Pakistan, Romania, Senegal, Sierra Leone, South Korea, and Tanzania. There you go, I got it. So all those countries, those are the 19 countries that, including those ones. I guess there was also, I don't know why they didn't name every country. Is that 19?
Mm-hmm.
There's only 14 countries, so there's 5 other countries that I guess it was the U.S. and India. Those are 2 other countries they polled. But where are and Britain, I guess, maybe. So I don't know what the 2 other countries are. They didn't tell. But 11 of those 19 countries said that, nobody believes that the elections are fair, which they aren't. And I don't think it has to do with misinformation. I'm sure that helps. I'm sure there's many parts to this, but I think another part of this is definitely the fact that rich people can just lobby or bribe, and then they get whatever law they want passed. There's no democracy if it's just one guy paying somebody to make a law, paying a bunch of guys, right? Paying the entire Senate to pass this law or something. Yeah, we're bribing about 90% of the Senate to pass this law, so it's gonna go through, guys.
We know.
Well, that's my story on how do you feel about voting?
Vote.
I feel that voting locally is very useful.
Oh, definitely vote in your local elections. You might even know those people.
Those are more important.
If you know them,
I would argue.
If you know them, you're like, I can't believe this person's running for office. But yeah. In the U.S., I don't know. This is from AP News. Oklahoma judge orders Kansas City Chiefs superfan Chiefsaholic to pay $10.8 million to bank teller. Well, here, let's delve into this one. This is from Sean Murphy. An Oklahoma judge ordered a Kansas City Chiefs superfan known as Chiefsaholic, who admitted to a series of bank robberies, to pay $10.8 million to a teller who was assaulted with a gun, though attorneys say the teller may never collect any money. A judge in Tulsa handed down the order last week against Xavier Michael Bubadar, nice name, who was known for attending Chiefs games dressed as a wolf in NFL games gear. Former bank teller Patricia Garcia alleged Bubadar used a gun to assault her during a robbery of a Bixby, Oklahoma credit union on December 2022. Court records show. The judge ordered Bubadar to pay Garcia $3.6 million for her injuries and loss of income and $7.2 million in punitive damage. A message left Tuesday with Budabar's attorney was not immediately returned. Garcia's attorney, Frank Frazier, acknowledged that it would be difficult to collect the money for his clients, but said the judgment sends an important message. I think the judge feels that way, Frazier told the Associated Press. She did not come out right out and say it during the hearing, but I argued that nobody should be able to profit from this, be it notoriety, clicks, views, or likes. Frazier said if Budabar ever sold this story, wrote a book, or was somehow able to profit from his story, his client will be able to collect some of the judgment against him. Although tellers have sued their employees over bank robberies although tellers have sued their employers over bank robberies before, it's far less common for them to sue a robber. Ed Blau, a prominent criminal defense attorney in Oklahoma City, said that's because it's safe to assume bank robbers aren't generally wealthy. Blau, who is not affiliated with the Garcia case, said that while it's strategically savvy for Garcia to sue Budadar, whatever his name is, it's unlikely she will ever collect much from him. She could have gotten a judgment up for $10 billion, but the likelihood of collecting is exceedingly slim, she said. She's got judgment on paper only. Budadar pleaded guilty in February to a string of robberies of banks and credit unions in multiple states. He remains in prison until his formal sentencing, which is set for July 10th in Kansas City. Federal prosecutors said Babudar admitted that the robberies and attempted robberies in 22 and 23 and to the laundering of stolen money through casinos and online gambling. As part of a plea agreement, Babudar must pay at least $532,675 in restitution. He must also forfeit property, including an autographed painting of the Chiefs quarterback Patty Mahomes that was recovered by the FBI. Before his arrest, Babudar, I think I finally got his name right, was a well-known figure on social media for his rapid support of the Chiefs and attended several games dressed as a wolf in Chiefs clothing. Famously, he would go to towns even. I had read part of the story. He would go to road games as a Chiefs fan, rob a bank, right? And then go to the game.
Really? Wow.
Yep. Great cover, right? You're not even from the town. You're just there for the game and then you leave with all your cash. Of course, you get caught, so it wasn't that great.
It wasn't. The idea was there. The execution, however, was not. Yeah.
The execution, but the actual greed probably got to him. He just kept doing it.
I mean, if I was able to steal, what was that, 1.8 billion or something million? How much was it?
10.8 million is what he owes the teller. I don't know how much he stole.
Oh, okay. If I even stole 1 million, I would be like, I'm going to pretend this doesn't exist for a year. I'm going to be poor for a year.
He stole it and lost it gambling. So,
like, why would you...
Well, gambling's a great money laundering tool, right? Because you can only usually gamble with cash, right? Cash, withdraw it, lose it, or win it, nobody's keeping track. The guy at the roulette table is not keeping track.
The problem is he sucked at gambling, I guess.
Right, gambling's a perfect money laundering scam. So.
This is not us giving permission to go launder money.
Well, if you have a lot of cash and you don't want the IRS to get it, tell me you lost to gambling. How are they gonna do? They gonna prove you wrong? They gonna follow? They gonna look? They gonna close circuit camera at every casino in your area saying, "Yeah, there he is." No, they're not. All you gotta do is go to a casino, withdraw $500 or whatever their limit is.
If we're gonna talk about how to legally defraud the government, the truth is that
exactly.
the IRS doesn't have enough manpower to actually do anything against you. It's like a fact.
They're not even not prosecuting the big tax cheats. They're trying to. The Congress is trying to stop them. The Republicans in Congress is trying to stop the IRS from prosecuting the real tax cheats, the super rich.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, yes, I do want to tell you how to launder money. Go to the ATM at the casino, so you have a record of it. Withdraw as much cash as you can, and go lose it at the casino. You say, "Hey, I lost it at that casino." What are they going to say? You didn't lose it? Oh, yes, I did. Tell me I did. Show me where I didn't lose it. Okay?
Well, they would have to audit the casino, basically, and that's too much trouble.
They would audit they would have to audit the casino, every roulette table, all the craps tables, everywhere, right? The slot machines, everywhere.
There's at least 10 million unaccounted for here. Yeah.
Right, because slot machines don't pay out in cash anymore. They pay out in receipts. They pay out tickets. So you're basically just going from machine to machine, throwing in your laundered money and taking it out as cash when you leave the casino for the day. You get a receipt for that, right?
Yeah.
But you can take it out any day. You don't take it the same day. Anyway, there's lots of schemes for money laundering, and the rich people have mastered it. So why can't poor people master it too?
Yeah, I guess it's because they have
back
more
to
to
you.
lose.
There's your story.
Unfortunately.
Don't rob banks. That's
Yeah.
definitely bad. Robbing banks. Okay, that's where all the money's kept, and banks are insured. But there's people that work there to get hurt. So, there's your lesson.
Yeah, don't hurt anybody when you want to launder money. Just...
And in economic news, the yen is at a 34-year low. Back to you.
Oh, god damn. Sad horde for that.
The yens, the Japanese money.
Time to go to Japan if you don't live there, I guess. I did see a short about this, actually. It was, there's a famous, or I don't know if he's famous, but he's well known on YouTube for interviewing people on the street in Japan, and he's also Japanese, so he does it in like a Japanese way. And he was asking this older Japanese woman how they feel about the economy, and they were saying like everywhere else seems better than now. Because the yen has fallen in such value, right? Everything is too expensive. The yen has no power.
Like that.
And then I think they said something like Brazil or something as an example. And then everyone in the comments was like, Brazil? You're using Brazil as like an example of a good economy?
Argentina.
Hello?
Use Argentina with their 500%
You know your economy is bad
inflation.
when you're saying Brazil is better than us right now.
I don't know. Brazil probably is. I don't know. Why are we ripping on Brazil all of a sudden? They're trying to get their shit together. Anyway.
Okay, so let's cover children and how they're being treated in the gender identity services in the UK. This is from The Guardian by Amelia Gentleman. This is going to be a long story. That's why I did 2 short stories, so I can talk about this for 20 minutes. In the autumn of 2019...
20, wow.
No, it's not that long. It says 8-minute read, but it's probably not 8 minutes.
Okay.
In the autumn of 2019, leading consultant pediatrician Hilary Cass agreed to conduct a review of international research into puberty blockers for the NHS England. She expected it to be a short and straightforward task. I thought it would be a couple of afternoons, a month for 6 months, and then I could go home and get on with my retirement, she said, laughing wearily. On the morning before the publication of a review into gender identity services, a project that has become one of the most controversial evidence review projects in recent medical history. Oh god, she probably found some stuff that was going on, then dig deeper and found even more stuff that's going on, and she was like, oh my god, I have to keep going, and that's why it ended up being a freaking... The work had developed into a 24-hour-a-day obsession to try and help improve things, and has placed her at the vortex of a debate she described as toxic, politicized, and ideological. You don't even have to tell me, you don't have to do a study to tell me that. I already know that's how it is. Cass' review is written in a calmly clinical tone, but there are moments when her anger about how the NHS England has cared for a generation of vulnerable children is barely disguised. That's my favorite academic writing, is when you can tell this person who's writing actually cares what they're talking about, and they start getting sassy. They're like, really? Are you serious right now? Clinicians have become fearful. The available evidence is poor. But efforts to conduct a vital and comprehensive study into the outcomes of all 9,000 children and adolescents treated at the Tavistock and Portman Gender Identity Development Services, or GIDS, clinic between 2009 and 2020 were thwarted. Cass knows her recommendations will be hugely controversial, and that some children waiting for treatment will be dismayed by her conclusions, but she is adamant that she has young people's best interests at heart. We've let them down because the research isn't good enough and we haven't got good data, she said. The toxicity of the debate is perpetrated by adults, and that itself is unfair to children who are caught in the middle of it. The children are being used as football, and this is a group that we should be showing more compassion to. The scope of her review is huge. She has set out to review all of the available evidence on which gender medicine has been based globally, as well as trying to answer the puzzling question of why the numbers of children seeking referrals for gender clinicals in the UK and in other developed countries began at an exceptional rate rise around 2014, and why so many more girls began seeking treatment. In 2011-2013, there were just under 250 referrals to the service. In 21 and 22, there had a rise to more than 5,000 referrals. That is a huge increase in 10 years. She has also been charged with making clear recommendations about how services can be improved. In the wake of the closure of the Tavistock Clinic's GIDS clinic last month, a closure which came about as a result of her interim research, In the future, she wants her services to offer a broad range of interventions rather than having tunnel vision on gender. She's not even sure that the future clinics should have gender in their name, noting that we should move away from just calling these gender services because young people are not just defined by their gender. Kat says it is not her job to comment on whether some professionals should face disciplinary proceedings for their role in what has gone wrong. I don't think you can point a finger at anyone in particular. It's been a system failure, she said. The toxicity of the debate has been so great that people have become afraid to work in this area. Medical professionals experience a sense of fear of being called transphobic if you take a more cautious approach, she said. Others were worried that they might be accused of conducting conversion therapy if, again, they take a cautious or exploratory approach. Some clinicians express fearfulness about what colleagues might say. They speak up and express an opinion that is not consistent with theirs. The consequences of this rising nervousness among clinicians over the past 15 years has been that many children exploring their gender, which Cass describes as a normal process in adolescence, not necessarily requiring any NHS input, have been prematurely diverted towards chronically oversubscribed specialist clinics and left sitting on waiting lists for years without any support. There are many more young people now who question their gender. What's really important is that they have a space to be able to talk to someone about that and to work through that. The problem has been that whilst they sat on a waiting list, they just haven't had the help. They've just had the internet to help them, and that's not always helpful. Sometimes they've come to a premature conclusion and closed options when there might have been different ways of resolving their distress. The aspiration, and I'm under no illusion that this is going to happen quickly, is that they should have someone to talk to much earlier on before they narrow their opinions. Cass believes that for a minority of young people, medical tradition will be the right option, but she is clear that there is no solid evidence basis justifying the use of hormones for children and adolescents. Her earlier research has led to a decision by NHS England to stop prescribing puberty blockers to children, and that new research recommends extreme caution before prescribing masculinizing, feminizing hormones to under 18-year-olds. We've got it locked in, this focus on medical intervention, and certainly some of the young adults said to us they wished they'd known when they were younger that there were more ways to being trans than just a binary medical transition, she said. A long section of her report looks at whether nature, nurture, or other factors best help explain the soaring numbers of referrals to gender clinics. Cass' conclusions are nuanced, but she acknowledged that Generation G are facing unprecedented exposure to social media and the internet. It is a social experiment. We don't know what that's done for the generation that's coming through, what has been good and what has been bad, she said. Biology hasn't changed in the last few years, so it's not that that's changed things. We do have to think very seriously about the impact of social media, not just in terms of influencers, but about the effect of long hours on social media. She added, there was some very dangerous influencing going on. Some of them give them very unbalanced information. Some were told parents would not understand, so they had to actively separate from their parents and distance their parents. All the evidence shows that family support is really key to keeping a person's well-being, she said. She acknowledged that some children may have been harmed by being misprescribed hormone treatments, but she said it was impossible to say how many. We really don't know how many children have been benefited versus how many children and young people have been harmed because we haven't got adequate follow-through data. We urgently need to get that information. It was unbelievably disappointing that the research study she had hoped to conduct to look at the outcomes of 9,000 former Tavistock patients had been blocked by an adult gender clinic, who refused to contact former patients for permission on her behalf. Former Health Secretary Shaji Javid had changed legislation to allow researchers to link pre- and post-transition NHS numbers, but the research had to be abandoned when all but one of the adult clinics refused to cooperate. Cass said, I do not think it was coordinated. It seems to me to be ideologically driven, she said. There was no substantive reason for it, so I can only really conclude that it was because they didn't feel that it was the right thing to do and to nail down this data. Cass said she has a distant relative who had a trans identity, but that her outlook had not been influenced by that connection. They were of a different generation and transited very late in life. I don't think there were any transferable messages really. To sort of this group of young people, she said. I know a lot about this because I have watched a video by Philosophy Tube, which she did transition medically into a woman, and she talked about how difficult it was as an adult. She's not a child, she's an adult, and how difficult it was for an adult to transition. Somebody who has the brain compatibility to understand their gender identity. They still had to go through a lot of stuff. And even then, when the therapist or the doctors agreed that she is a transgendered woman, she still had to convince a doctor to actually sign off on it. There were doctors who were like, oh yeah, I agree with this, but I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. Okay. She goes to a different doctor. They all say, I'm not going to do it. Too risky for me as a person to do any of this. So she can't get the care she needs because doctors are scared of providing the care, and some of them are outright against it. They're like, I understand your diagnosis, but I don't agree with it. Ideologically, it doesn't exist. I don't care, My opinion is that this is all bullshit. So there's doctors out there who are refusing care because it's just really weird reaction from people who are supposed to just do their job, and I don't know why their ideology has to go into it. I think doctors should be impartial and not have any opinions. The only opinions they should have is like, is this going to harm the patient? Yes or no? And if it's no, then do the freaking thing they're asking you to do at the end. It's similar to how when women want to get their tubes tied or their uterus taken out or whatever, they're like, I don't want to have children. I'm good. Take the body part out of me. The doctors go, but what if you get a husband? What if you change your mind? Then that's their risk they're taking. Let the people who are asking you to remove their organs or do things to them have their own consequences of their decisions. It's not like, oh, what if you sue me for medical malpractice or something? It's like, just have them sign a waiver. You are signing off that you would like me to remove your uterus. Yes, I agree. This is not my fault. I agree. Take it out of me instead of giving me a whole spiel. Not me. Giving people a whole spiel of, what if you get a husband? What if you change your mind? What if something happens and you decide, oh, you won't be able to have children? What a shame. Go adopt somebody. I don't know. I just think that if people are doing things with their body that affect nobody, they should be allowed to do it. And that's not too hard to ask for. That's my same idea with drugs. Doing drugs. It's their body. Okay? I know there's technically a societal effect of drug use, like you get really dependent and you can do crimes to try to get your drugs. I understand that, but transgendered people aren't doing any of that stuff, okay? They're not killing people for estrogen, or that's not happening.
Well,
yeah.
At least we don't know they are.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who's been murdered
because
they had some HRT vials in their bag, okay?
We have no evidence of causation that this causes anything. It's just
why did you get murdered?
Decision.
They wanted my estrogen, and I wouldn't give it to them.
It's like dyeing your hair, man. Let them alone.
Yeah, I just don't care.
It doesn't affect you.
I care about people getting what they want out of life, and I don't care above that. That's it. Whatever they're doing, not affecting me. So that's my long story. On to, I guess, this day in history. Did you send me a...
All right. Golf claps. I did not find a mic drop, man. I just like searching.
Okay, I'll look for one.
There's nothing.
While you're reading this day in history.
It's just like everything's a letdown. It's like, just stupid shit. Anyway, one of those days. This day in history. So I'll try to make it long. Maybe you can find something useful. Maybe something to do with, I don't know, one of the stories you covered.
Apollo 13
and this day in Apollo 13 happened on this day. That's right. Maybe you can play a clip from the movie or from the live thing. I actually remember it. I was a kid and I remember
You were,
it.
Oh, really?
1815. Oh, yeah. It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't the turn of the century or anything. It was 1972, I think. 71? 70 or 71. 1815. Well, it's probably up here in this day in history, right?
Yeah.
We'll get to it. 1970 it was. 70. 1815, the eruption of Mount Tambora, a volcano on the island of Sumbawa in what is now Indonesia, killed about 10,000 people. Of course, that triggered as a massive eruption. It triggered what was known as a couple of years without summer. 1815 and 1816 had no summer. So crops didn't grow, people starved, it caused more than 10,000 people would die easily. In 1848, Emperor Ferdinand I of Austria confirmed the March Laws, and he did in April, which formed the foundation of the modern state of Hungary. In 1893, Dean Acheson was born. He was the U.S. Secretary of State from 1949 to 1953, advisor to 4 presidents, and the principal creator of the U.S. foreign policy and the Cold War period following World War II. In 1895, Cuban patriot Jose Julian Marti landed in Cuba at the head of an invading force whose goal was to win independence from Spain. In 1951, U.S. President Harry Truman relieved General Douglas MacArthur of his command of the United Nations and U.S. forces during the Korean War. Excuse me, hiccups again. My morning hiccups. It's like a tradition. 1953, mathematician Andrew John Wiles, deviser of a proof of Fermat's last theorem, was born in Cambridgeshire, England. In 1961, the trial of Nazi leader Adolf Eichmann began in Jerusalem. 8 months later, it was ended in the only death sentence ever imposed by an Israeli court. In 1970, as we just talked about, in this day, Apollo 13 was launched from Cape Kennedy, now Cape Canaveral, Florida. Although scheduled to be the third lunar landing, the mission was aborted after an oxygen tank exploded en route to the moon. And of course, they had to still get back to the United States, and the only way to get back to the United States was to use the moon as a, like a sling projector. What do they call it? To sling it back to Earth. So you had to go around the moon and come back to the Earth.
Yeah.
The only way to get back. That's the only way back. At least at the time. We've probably figured some shit out now, but the only way back was to use the moon centrifugal force. That's the word. To sling the capsule back towards Earth. In 1979, Ugandan President Idi Amin, whose brutality earned him the nickname Butcher of Uganda, fled the country as Tanzanian-led forces neared Kampala. Idi Amin, famous cannibal Idi Amin. 2007, American author Kurt Vonnegut died at the age of 84. He was noted for such wryly satirical novels as Slaughterhouse-Five. Yeah, I could have played a clip from Slaughterhouse-Five. That was a interesting movie.
Yeah, it's pretty. I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Wow.
I think I've seen it. Yeah. Very interesting.
2013, Maria Talchif, whose exquisite technique made her one of the greatest ballerinas in the United States, died at the age of 88. And our featured biography, Charles Evans Hughes, United States jurist and statesman, was born on this day in April 11th, 1862 in Glen Falls, New York. Died August 27th, 1948 in Osterville, Massachusetts. Our featured events, Napoleon. Yep, Napoleon. On this day, 1814, Napoleon abdicated at Fontainebleau. During the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon was facing an invasion of France by forces bent on his overthrow. Impressed by his own officers, abdicated unconditionally at Fontainebleau. Famous people's birthdays today. Kasturba Gandhi, Indian political activist, born in 1869. We already covered Dean Acheson and Charles Evans Hughes. It's Anton LaVey's, American author's birthday in 1930. And Andrew Wiles, British mathematician, born in 1953, which, holy crap, we already covered that. So they're just doing things over and over again. And National Day Calendar. It is National Barbershop Quartet Day. Hello, 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 hello. Now everybody's like, hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. And it's National 8-Track Tape Day. Do you know what 8-track tape is?
No, I've never seen one.
Most people out there have no idea. Back in the 70s, if you wanted to play music in your car, that's just what it was designed for. Or just carry something around. Before cassettes were any good, the cassettes did exist, but they just weren't, they were crap. There's a thing called the 8-track, which you didn't have to rewind or do anything. You just put it in, and it played continuously. The sound was horrible, and it ruined songs by chopping them up, because it had to have, it says 8-track tape, but it had 4 tracks, right? Because it was stereo.
Yeah.
For literal programming tracks. So you'd have say 3 songs on track 1, 3 songs on track 2, 2 songs on track 3, but a lot the tape had to end exactly right at the right spot. Okay. So what you had was albums, you listening to a song, and it would fade out in the middle of the song, click to the next track, and fade back in the middle of the same song. And I'm like, yeah, that was
this is
not the best format in the world.
Yeah.
You can see why it didn't last. Terrible sound quality, and who wants to be listening to a song and in the middle it fades out, clicks, and then fades back in? What the hell wants to listen to that? It was all because it was portable. That was the only real reason.
Yeah, you could take it.
It's also national, right? It lasted maybe about 5 years with its heyday. You could buy a car with an 8-track player in it. I think my brother had a brand new car with an 8-track already installed. National Cheese Fondue Day, which we covered. Cheese. It's National Alcohol Screening Day. Alcohol screening? What's alcohol screening? Let's find out. Oh. Just gonna start talking. Sorry. National Alcohol Screening Day is every year. National Alcohol Screening Day. There's a pop-up ad. Raises awareness about the harmful effects of alcohol abuse and alcohol dependency. Okay, there you go. I'm not sure what the screening part is. Each year on Thursday in the first full week in April, these screens are okay. These screens offer anonymous, confidential opportunities for addiction to seek help. Okay. Okay. Well,
oh no, we have to turn our screens off.
And no, just get help if you're drunk. If you're alcoholic. Sorry, I don't want to be derogatory. If you're an alcoholic, get help. Right? And you're probably not secret as you think you are. National Submarine Day today, and it's National Living Donor Day. Do you know what a living donor is? It's somebody who's living and donates stuff. But it's got pictures of monarch butterflies, which seems totally unconnected. Those are your days for today, April 11th, 2024, in this comprehensive look at the news on Before Coffee.
Okay, this has been Ally from the Netherlands, where I guess we're gonna have our Friday news dump with hopefully some more longer stories and some exciting, not too exciting, interesting news, I should say, on Friday. Make sure you, I guess, turn your screens off for alcohol.
I don't even know what that means.
Don't do that. And have some cheese fondue with your pet, and we will see you
None of these connect very well.
Here is your mic drop moment.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.